Hello, welcome. In today's video, we are just going to look at how to use Redux and Redux Toolkit in Next.js 14. So I'm just going to break down a step-by-step how you can implement Redux in Next.js 13. In Next.js 14, we are going to look at what is Redux, what's the purpose of Redux, but right now, let me just show you a demo of the simple project that we are going to build. So so this is the demo of the app. So we have the items on the UI, and by default there is no any item in the cart. Okay, you just go here, add the first item. You can see item added successfully. We can go and look for this TV, add it. The second item added successfully. Can add another one, add item successfully. Now we can just go ahead and look for the first item. We add it like twice. Let's just go here and this bag, add it. Therefore, let's go back and add this bag one more time so that it doesn't add duplicates. So if you have already added the item in the cart, it doesn't add it. If I go one more time, add this, you see it added it, but it has not modified the cart items. If you go to view cart, you will see that the one that we added twice, the bag, has quantity 2. First of all, we have the total subtotals calculated. If I go ahead and I increase this to 2, you see the subtotals are changing. So we have increment, decrement working properly. Okay, we have delete functionality working properly. Okay, great. So hello, welcome once again. In today's video, we are going to cover the most asked tutorial. Most people have been asking me to actually use Redux in most of my projects that I've been doing on our channel. So in today's video, we are going to break down a step-by-step on how to use Redux. Okay, so Redux, as you are going to see when you search on the internet, is one of the most things that people want to understand. But somehow, if you are compared to maybe context API, or you are compared to use state, you will find that actually Redux is somehow more complicated to implement, and it has like weird abstract terms that most people don't actually understand. And me myself, it took me actually time to understand Redux. Okay, it is not easy to understand Redux, but I'm just going to try and break down. As you know me, I always try to really break down a concept until you understand it absolutely. So by the end of this video, you should be able to use Redux in any project in Next.js, in your Next.js application, whether you're using TypeScript or not, because at the end of the day, you adding TypeScript actually is not complicated at this point. But for beginners and to understand this concept very well, I'm just going to be using JavaScript. Now, after we have done TypeScript, I will redo again Redux. Don't mind or don't worry, using even a different project. So there are these two terms actually that people use interchangeably, or you will find being used: Redux and then Redux Toolkit. Okay, so this is going to be, I think, our first thing to look at. What is Redux and what is Redux Toolkit? I think it is good to first understand actually what are these two terms, what do they mean. Okay, so Redux itself is a state management library. Now, if you have been using React, and this is a state management library for all JavaScript applications, whether you are using pure JavaScript or if you are using React, or you're using Vue.js, or you're using Angular, you can still use Redux. So it is not entitled only React, but you see that most use cases is going to be React, because apps like Vue and Angular, they try to actually have their own, but how they built Redux is that you can use it across all applications. Okay, so it's a state management system. As if you can hear the word state management and you are familiar with use state, you are familiar with context API, and you are familiar with React, you understand that here we are talking about data. Okay, so state management, it is very straightforward. It is for managing global state or for managing state within your application. Okay, you will find that at small cases you have things like use state, const, maybe name, set name is equal use state. You have seen something like that when you're having like forms or on clicks. Okay, so we are familiar with state up to this point if you have been using React. Okay, if you have been using React at this point, you must be familiar with at least state. I can give you maybe an example. You have seen us doing something like this in React. So let me just go down here and put something like const. I can first disable this, and let me just put down here. Actually, I think I should just get entirely new slide. I just go here and create a blank slide to demonstrate this. So if you are used with React, at least you should be able to use something like const, whereby we have like name and set name, and then something like this where you have use state, and then you pass in some kind of like initial data here. Okay, so this is already how React uses to manage state. This is the state you are managing, like the name, and then this is a function that you are using to actually manipulate state. So in state, as we are seeing, there are some things that you are going to get familiar with. For instance, you have whatever you are changing, which is actually the state. Okay, and then you have this, which is the function to manipulate the state, and then basically you have also the final thing, which is initial state. And this is just like if you are familiar with React, you understand that this is really something we use so much. Okay, so this is the state itself. Okay, you can just this is the state itself if you have been using React. So the name is the state. This function is, this is a function that actually manipulates state. So this is a function that modifies state. Just going to put down here, modifies state, just like that. Okay, and then finally you have something like use state, which is actually the initial state. So you can see we are going to I want you to remember always remember this. This is basic state management. Okay, basic state management in a component management in a component. Okay, so as you can see, this is really a basic state management in a component. You can just use this and you're managing something like this. So this is when we talk about state, this is what you are meaning. You have some data, you expect data to change at some point. Okay, so there are some things which are involved. For instance, the state itself, you expect like a sort of a function which is going to modify the state and maybe even the initial state. Okay, So this is something we are used to, all of us, we are used to. So when I talk about state management, at this point, you shouldn't actually get lost. This is what I'm trying to mean. We are managing state. Okay? So as we looked at Redux, as I've said, Redux is just a state management library. So you understand now what I'm talking about. So for a big applications, we might not use state or context API. At least there is a video. If you don't know context API, there is a video for context API. You can also just check it out and see. I think I will also link a link in the description, or you can just check on my channel. You will just see the context API. Let's go back to Redux. So Redux, also the purpose of the Redux, it is most used in big applications to manage state. And in big applications, what normally happens is that we are having a lot of data moving around. It can be products, it can be cart items, it can be settings, like any sort of data that you are moving around the application. It becomes very complicated. Now Redux gives you a single source of truth for the application state. Instead, what it does, instead of leaving the data within your app, it moves all the data in like a separate store where all components can access at a same level. We're just going to look at that, what it means in a second. But what just know, it abstracts the whole app instead of them depending. I think let me just draw something else here for you to be able to understand this I'm talking about. So you're saying here it provides a single source of truth for your application state, okay, and accessible throughout the component hierarchy. Redux promotes predictability and others. Let me just draw something here for you to see what I'm trying to mean in this case. So let's assume that you have your application here. Normally you have this as your app. Okay, this is your maybe your React app. It can be a React app or Next.js. It doesn't matter so long as this uses components. And down here, I'm very sure you will have small components. At least you have some sort of like components, and then of course even these components have more components. So you will have sort of like this whole structure of components. Okay, you can have this whole structure of components just like this. So this is something that is known in React, whereby all these other ones, they are all components. Okay, so these I just move this here. So all these ones are just simple components. I'm just going to, so all these ones are components. Okay, all these ones are components. And normally how data moves within, or these ones, for instance, we have data entering from maybe one place. Data can come from one, like maybe it moves from this, it goes into this one. Okay, let me just make this one a different color. Okay, so maybe this is how data moves. So we have this, and let me just give it also more weight. Maybe this is the data, the green arrow, the data. So maybe it is enters the app. Let's say you have products, they enter into this app.page.js, and then you send them from other components. So you can send them into like different components like this. So this is how data moves. You get from one component. Normally in React apps or Next.js apps, you have data entering from one component. Maybe you fetch it from the database. Okay, let's just say it comes from your API. So it comes from your API. Let me put here API. So you have the API endpoint, which is giving data, then you bring it in maybe in the page. Okay, let me just make this one like page.jsx. Okay, so you have here page.jsx receiving the data from the API. You get it, then you send it maybe to the product component. Okay, maybe you send it to this products list. So here you can just have like you have products list component, and then product list component will send it to the product component. I think you understand this architecture at this point. So you have like data moving in this kind of direction, okay, and you can even continue moving it more down as you want, okay. But when you this is when you don't have all the normal procedure, but when you have Redux, okay, so for instance, when you have Redux here store, okay, you have like a store, and it is not just like it's abstracted from the entire application. So if you have this as an entire application, you have this store aside here, and then you can actually get data instead of doing this prop drilling. Okay, instead of doing this prop drilling, you can simply bring the data direct to this product or to this one. Like, you don't have to do drill data along very many places. Okay, you only need just to get data into this Redux store from the maybe API endpoint, and then it will be the single source of truth. That's why they said the single source of truth of your application state. So all the data will be originating here, and it has ability to enter any component. The way we saw in context, it can enter any of these components minus passing as a prop. You don't need to pass it as a prop. It can go direct into a component. Okay, we're just going to look at that in a second, but that is me explaining this application state as a single source of truth for this, whereby all components, they can access this state. Okay, and this kind of working, it gives us the predictable behavior and also this unidirectional flow. We're just going to look at it in a second. Okay, so basically it is Redux. But at first, when they brought Redux, it was really hard. You had to write a lot of code. If you went to the Redux website, you had to really write a lot of code. That's why people were all complaining of its complexity. It was more writing more code to solve of a simple problem. But then what they did, people of Redux, they went ahead and they brought what you call the Redux Toolkit. Okay, so the Redux Toolkit is simply they abstracted most things you use in Redux, and then they put them together into a package, and then we use this package to abstract Redux at a high level. Instead of writing most of the things by yourself, they put it into opinionated tool set. Okay, so they put them as a set of utilities that you can actually use to get Redux working in your applications. Those days you used to create a lot of files, but right now there are not so many files compared to how it used to be in Redux itself. So Redux Toolkit is built on top of Redux and gives us more high level functions or utilities to work with than within the Redux. Okay, it is just simply a package built on top of Redux, and it's what you're going to be using in this project. Okay, moving on. What problem does Redux solve? I was just like talking about that problem, and the problem is called React prop drilling or prop drilling. So if you know the concept of prop drilling, is where data is moving as props. Okay, the more you want to access data in some place, you move it as a prop, and you find you are passing through so many levels of application of components just to pass data into that component. If you want to see that, you can also watch where we built. You can watch the, I think it is the invoice. You can watch the invoice application we built with Next.js 13. You can go and watch, and you see the movement of data can get crazy at some point. You find you're using props everywhere, and you're having this data, and you can easily get lost. Where was I? What was I passing here? And that problem, we can remove it by using a state management application or system, and in this case we are going to use Redux. Okay, so just know we are solving a problem of prop drilling. So this prop drilling, as you can see, the items are interdependent on each other. Okay, if I'm to grab a pen here, you can see in this case, like, you have the data in this. Data can move down into a child component. Data might need to move up, back. Like, you're having this crazy movement of data between different components. And if you have been using React for some time, or Next.js, you have seen how, if you are building a big project, how movement of data can actually get very sensitive and very hard. Okay, so simple as with Redux, you have one store, okay, where you have all the data, and then all the components, they have access to this data from the same store. Okay, so this is very helpful and understand up to that point. Okay, so as we said, if you are building a large app without a centralized state, you would have to find that data would be scattered across components, leading to prop drilling. You may just see, if for instance you have a piece of data you have defined in the header, and it is supposed to make some effect in the sidebar, you would look on, how am I going to do that? How am I going to look at that state? Okay, and then you have to drill the data, keep pushing it until it reaches where you want it, and that is why we call prop drilling, passing props down the component tree, making the code messy and cumbersome to understand. And Redux solves exactly this problem by bringing all the state to a single store, accessible by any component throughout. Okay, so now, how does Redux work? And if you are not been paying attention, this is the most time you actually be so much attentive, and expect you to have your pen and a paper, and you just write this down. Okay, because as I've said, you are going to watch a lot of tutorials about Redux. It does not necessarily mean you are going to understand. Me personally, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos about Redux, and I did not understand, because everyone is explaining it the way they understand, or they try to understand it, and can quickly get complicated and even very hard to implement in your own project. Okay, so it took me time to research, and me personally try to break it down onto small pieces, so that you can actually understand how this whole thing works. So pay much attention, so that you can understand how this concept works. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the actual example, because if I start with the actual Redux, that's what most people do. They start explaining Redux like using like a very complicated example. This, you need to get an example that is most on the UI, and then before we go into any code, okay, you just need to get it into like the UI. So assuming this is our home page, and we have a list of products, at least you saw this in the demo. Okay, you saw that we had like a list of products just like this. So you have a list of products onto the UI, and you have this button you have added that says add to cart or add. Okay, and what do you want when the person reaches here? Okay, so the first thing is, you have to believe that the purpose you want is when someone actually clicks the add to cart button, or adds the add to cart button, you want it to modify the cart initial state. This might be complicated, just like paraphrase it. What you might want is that you simply want to add the item into the cart. Okay, so if this was in the previous example, let me just go a second. Just going to say maybe keep. Let me just go to the previous example where we had this normal state. Okay, let me duplicate this and let me bring it down to this point here. Okay, so as we have seen, like in this example here, you have someone clicking here. You would want actually to modify the initial state. What do I mean initial state? So if you remember here, if I had, for instance, cat, okay, if I say this was cat, and this one I would have set cat, and then this use state, the initial one would be an empty array. So if you have been using React, this is something which is really familiar. Okay, this is something that is really familiar. You have like the cat, which is actually an array of cat items, and then you have like set cat, which is a function that modifies the state of this cat. And in basically we are meaning this initial state, because at first the state is going to be equal the initial state. Okay, so basically when I say that when you click here, that when you click the add item, you add is to add the item in cart, which in turn actually modifies the cart initial state, meaning that when you add the item in the cart, it will change the array. Because if here you had an empty array and you click add to cart, you would add an item inside here, and which in turn of course modifies the initial state. Okay, I'm hoping that you have understood that. So the one thing is, when someone clicks the button, the purpose is this. This is the whole goal. Okay, the whole goal is to add the item in the cart, which in turn modifies the cart initial state. Now, what data do I need to do this? We're just going to look at this. Of course, the data you need is this actual product here. Okay, this actual product is the data you need for this purpose to happen. But why don't we use this? Okay, the problem is that where we add the cart, okay, we would just actually use this one, would work. Would have the cart state, and then you set cart here, then we modify. But then you ask yourself, for instance, okay, let me again go ahead and duplicate this slide. Okay, and in this case I would just say, why then do we need Redux if we can actually change using this use state? Because as you know, use state is also used to manage state. And why don't we use use state instead of Redux? So think about it. This whole thing is going to happen. For instance, let me try to remove some of these things here. Let me just do this, cut this, and then remove this whole thing. So for instance, you just said here this happens. So we have two things. We have like page.jsx. okay, you have like this component here, and then you have also the cart page. Actually, just say, instead let me just say home page. So you have the home page, and then you have the cart page. Okay, so you can see that this on the home page is where you have a list. Let me just copy this. Okay, so it is on the home page. So on the home page you have a list of products, and this is where the adding happens. Okay, so the adding of products add to cart happens here. So this add to cart is here. Okay, now the state that is going to be actually affected, the state is this side. So you can see on the cart page we have a list of cart, items. Okay, a list of cat items is on to this side, and here is where we need the state. So the state is needed this side. Okay, the state is needed this side, but the actual adding of add to cart is happening onto the home page, as if you see in the demo, that we are adding this. Okay, add to cart is added on the home page, and this is a different component, and then you need to access the state into the cart. This becomes very complicated. Okay, this becomes very complicated. You cannot use now your state, because your state manages data within a single component, within that very component. And if you want to actually manage at different components, like from one component to another component, you are going to do the prop drilling. Okay, you are going to do the prop drilling, where you have to pass the state as a prop until it reaches the the child component you want to change. Okay, so this is where actual Redux come into play. Oh, that's why we need Redux, is to be able to change. For instance, we run this action in add to cart in the home page, and we have no problem accessing the state in the cart page, because data is stored in the one store where all components can access it. Okay, moving forward, I guess you understand now. So now moving on with this add to cart. So what do we want to happen? So at first we saw this purpose. The purpose is to add the item in the cart, which means actually us modifying the cart initial state. Okay, now let's look at what will happen when someone clicks. So when someone clicks, or a user clicks on add to cart button, okay, so an event, for instance a click, that's why we add on a click. So an event click will be triggered, because this is a button, and when someone clicks a button, we capture that event. Okay, the click event. Of course, this click event will now trigger a function to run. So you imagine we have a function that will run when this event is triggered, and that is something which is very common. Most of the times when we click a button, a function must fire, or must be run in order to respond to the action. Okay, now which normally now in Redux, and that's why I'm just trying to explain this concept in terms of Redux and what we know so far. So we have been knowing that when you fire a function to run, a function to run, we know that when you click a button, on a click we can run a specific function, and that function can run in response to the to the event. Okay, now that function that will be triggered or that will run, actually in Redux we call it a reducer. Okay, and this I'm explaining these concepts because when you are explaining, someone is using reducers, is using actions, you actually have no idea what is a reducer or something. But I'm just telling you right now that a function is triggered when an event occurs is just called a reducer in Redux. Okay, but this function we need some data. As you know, that when someone clicks on add to cart, we need to get this product that he has clicked on, and then we carry it and we add it to the state. Okay, and so this data, so as we said here, by the function we need some data which we normally send as an object called action. Okay, so now when you click an event, okay, the data that event is going to carry with it is called an action. So when you, an action is just like a piece of data, an object is an object. Okay, is a piece of data stored in an object that is going to be sent to that function. Okay, so this normally contains a type and a payload, and you're just going to see that the payload is the actual data. Okay, is the actual data. Here you want to see the actual data. Okay, so the payload is the actual data that will actually manipulate the cart state. Okay, in this case the product that we need to add. So when you click on the add and the event is fired, a reducer will be triggered. Okay, a reducer will be triggered, and this reducer will be expecting the payload, and the payload is sent as an action. Like when someone clicks, an event will be converted into an action. I repeat, when someone clicks the add the button, an event like a click will be fired, and later on this event is going to be converted into an action, and the action is going to carry the data plus the data, and it carries that data as a payload. Okay, so whenever we're talking about payload, we are actually talking the actual data. Okay, so when I just say action.payload, in what I'm just trying to say is only the event that was fired, I'm trying to capture the data that was sent. Okay, and this one can of course change. Okay, so I'm putting here down an NB. Triggering a function to run is called dispatch. So in Redux, when someone says I'm dispatching or is dispatching something, is dispatching a reducer, is meaning actually is calling the function to run. We have said a reducer is a function, so triggering a function is what you call dispatching a reducer. Okay, so I guess you understand now. We're just going to look at that here, of course, in details. So moving on, so far we have seen the purpose. We have seen that this function that will run, add to cart function, that will add the item in the cart, is always called a reducer. So remember that a reducer is just simply a pure function. And then add to cart will need the product and the state as props, because if we need to manipulate a state, the initial state, that means that we must have access to the state itself and the data that is going to be added inside the state, or that is going to modify the state. So meaning that you'll find that always the reducer is going to be taking in two things. It's going to be taking in the state and the action. Okay, the state and the action. And what is action? Action, I've told you, is a piece of data that is sent from the event. That piece of the action is the one which is having the payload, and the payload is where we get the actual data that was sent, and in this case can be a product. Okay, now to move on, here we have been using one example of the product, and this is one particular event we are looking at. We can have multiple events. For instance, this is a cart page, and on the cart page you can have a list of items. As you can see, you have like this item, this action, and this item, and you understand that on each of these items you want to do particular actions. You want to do different actions. You want to maybe decrement quantity when you click on this minus button. You want to increase quantity when you click on the increment button. You want even to delete the item from a cart when you click on this delete button. So eventually, that's what I'm saying, you can have a bunch of buttons doing particular or doing different activities, meaning that in your Redux you will have all these ones you are seeing here. Decrement quantity, this one will be turned into a function, because when we click on this decrement, we want it to trigger a decrement quantity function, and this function what you call a reducer. So meaning each of these functions, they will be turned into reducers. Okay, so meaning this is like decrement quantity reducer, increment quantity reducer, and delete item from cart reducer. So you get the point at this point. Let's just look at this like decrement item from cart. So that means when a user clicks the delete button, an event will be triggered, and we said this event is going to be converted into an action. So the event will trigger a function to run. For instance, remove from cart function, and that function is what we actually call a reducer in Redux. Okay, but the function will need some data, which is normally sent as an object called action. So anything we send it on the action. Okay, so any piece of data you are sending onto the function is actually sent as an action, and this object you can destructure it and you get the payload. Okay, they say this actually normally contains type and payload. So this action is an object containing two keys, the type and the payload. The most interesting one we need most times is a payload. Okay, so the payload is the actual data that will manipulate the cart state. Okay, so for instance, in delete item to cart, when you want to delete the item, you need to know a specific ID that you want to delete. So in this case, the payload would be the cart item ID. Okay, so in this case, an ID of the cart item to be removed. Of course, we're just going to continue understanding this as we move further. So basically, this is the cycle or the Redux data flow. So you go to the UI, or this is a component, and on the component you have like a button. So when you click on button, which is the event, so on a click event, which is a user interaction, an action is going to be created from this event, as we have said. Actually, other people call it action creator. Okay, so an action is going to be created, and this action will be dispatched. As we said, you dispatch or you call a function. As you can see here, you can have delete item function, add item function, add post, edit post. All these ones can be reducers, or they can be the functions that will be called when a particular event actually occurs. So let's say you click and then the function has to be called. Calling of the function is what you call dispatching. Okay, so you dispatch, and then on the dispatching you call a reducer, and then you give it some data, and then this is going to go to the store, and then in the store, okay, in the store is going to affect, as you can see here. Let me just get access to the pane. Okay, so when this happens here at this point, so you have a user number 1, and then this is going to generate an action. Okay, and then the action, which is now an event, is going to be turned into an action. Basically, the action is having the payload, and the payload is actually the data. I don't know if I can just write here payload. I want you to get used to this word, payload. So payload is basically the data you are trying to send that will eventually be added in the state. Okay, this is the payload, and this payload is actually on the action. So action, okay, I wish I could just write this properly. Can I just like write very well here? Let me just try to write here. In this case, they just discard this. So in this case, I'm just going to get this one, duplicate this. So as I said, that action. So for the action, okay, so for the action is going to be an object. Normally it has two keys, the type. Okay, it has two keys, type, which can have the data. Let's say maybe whatever you want to put on this, and then another thing it can have, it will have the payload. Okay, and this payload can be an object, or it can be any data. So this payload is the actual data that you are sending, just like this. Okay, so this is in simple terms how the action will look like. It is an object containing type and payload, and we'll be interested most of the times into the payload. Okay, now when this comes into here in the store, it will go to, you can see there is a reducer. A reducer is going to manipulate the store and release the new state that is going to change the UI. Okay, as you can see here, I have this demo of what this one is doing. You can see you have to deposit $10. So it is going to fire out this event. So this is a button. When someone clicks this button, deposit, it fires an event. Event is turned into an action, and you can see that this action is sent to this, when you say dispatcher, it is the dispatcher is the one which actually takes the action to the reducer. And as we said, a reducer is simply a function, and what does it do? It manipulates the state. Then the state is sent back here to change it to $10. You see, deposit $10. Okay, when you click it, this is going to happen. Okay, look at that. You can just continue like playing this until you understand it. When you click on deposit, you will generate an event. An event is turned into an action. Action is taken by the dispatch. Okay, the dispatch or the dispatcher. And then, so we are going to see how we create the dispatchers and all that kind of stuff. But it is actually taken to the reducer, which is a function. And this reducer has ability to access the state, manipulate it, and produce the new state. And then this new state can be accessed by an entire app. Okay. So that is cool. You can just now see that again here. An action is sent from the UI through a dispatcher. The dispatcher then sends the action to the reducer with the action type and the payload. When the reducer received the action, it reads the action type. Now, if you wanted to use the action type, and then the payload to know how to update the state. Once the reducer is done, it updates the state, and then the UI receives the new changes. This is basically how actually the Redux works. So yes, we're going to start seeing it in really action. Okay. So one more thing, we have seen how reducer works. There are some other things that you have to understand about the Redux. One is sometimes that you're going to be using. We have already talked about the store. So the store contains the application state. Okay, like it can have one store, and now to make this store manageable, they created what you call slices. Okay, they call what you call slices, because you can imagine if we have settings in that one store, if we have settings, we have products, we have cart items in one store, and one store is one file, it would be very complicated also to manage. So to add in code splitting, they brought one concept called a slice. And a slice is simply a piece of the store data. Let's say this is the whole big store. So let's say you have, this is the entire store. So this is the entire store. Okay, you have this as an entire store, and then to be able to manage the store very well, we put like containers. As you know, if you have your store, like the normal store, a warehouse, in the warehouse you would have different sections. Okay, one maybe for the books, others for the car vehicle parts, others for what. So even here in the store, we can actually break it down into smaller pieces of that store, and that small piece is what you normally call slices. Okay, so normally you create a store. After creating a store, then you create the slices that you are going to actually import into this big store. And as you can see that the slice a slice stores like the original one piece of information. It's just like a piece of Redux store state. Okay, it includes the reducers, actions, and everything, the selectors, all this kind of stuff in the slice that we are going to be diving into and look at. Okay, so as we said, we have talked about the state. Now we have talked about the actions and events. As I've said, you can see here, actions are events. The store gets information only from the actions. They send data from the application store, The data can be from user interaction, API calls, or even form submissions. They have a type property that describes the type of the action and the payload of information. This here, a payload of information being sent to the store. Coding actions anywhere in the app, then it becomes very easy using the dispatch. And as we said, dispatching is like calling the reducer or calling a function. So whenever the state change occurs in the component, it triggers an action creator, which is just an action. As you're going to see here, that action creator is a function called action. Actions are plain objects. Remember, I created it here on top here. That actions, remember this, actions are just objects of information that send data from your application to your store. They are only source of information for the store. So the store can only get the information from the action. Okay. Then reducer, I've always talked about reducer. That is a pure function that takes in the current state of the applications, perform the action, and returns a new state. As simple as that. It have access to the current state or the initial state of the application, and it can perform the new action. For instance, you can say remove to cart, add to cart, all those actions, and then you can return a new state. Okay, these states are stored as objects. They specify how state of an application changes in response. So now I think at least this one gives us a good starting point. Okay, this gives us a good starting point. So in addition to this PowerPoint, if you have not been taking notes, some of these concepts that we have been talking in the PowerPoint, I went ahead and put them inside this blog or this guide that has everything that you have been discussing in the PowerPoint, okay, so that you can actually have access to this. So let's just see how we are going to implement. We have talked about enough of the theory, and this theory was really helpful because it's going to make sense when we start implementing. So the first thing you're going to do is actually scrolling down here on the shopping cart project. You can read through this how everything works, but basically is what I've been explaining in the PowerPoint. So the first thing is actually to clone the boilerplate. So I have the starter code that is actually having the UI, more especially the HTML, CSS for the product lists. We just need some products to work with, and I will walk you through. So the first thing is just go ahead and you have this starter. Just clone this. So I'm just going to open here. Just open here and clone this. So git clone that. So this one is going to give us the starter template to work with. Okay, so just simply now cd, you can first do ls. You see we have this new folder called Redux starter. I'm just going to cd into this Redux starter, and then inside the first thing is you can run npm install to add all the dependencies, and you can see here install the dependencies. After you have run this starter, you can now cd into the directory and then run npm install to add all the dependencies, and then we can start from there. Right now I just want to go ahead and install all the dependencies by writing running npm I or npm install, just like that. I'll just wait for a few seconds or a few minutes, and then it will finish installing, and then we shall be able to open our folder within VS Code. Okay, so it is going ahead and installing the dependencies, and the dependencies we actually only need in this case, okay, the dependencies we always need is actually the, or if you have your new project you want to add, you could just say npm install, and you can install Redux, okay, then React Redux, and then finally you can add one which is at Redux.js stroke toolkit. So you can install the toolkit as simple as that. So these are the ones we need actually: the Redux, React Redux, and the toolkit itself. So this is if you're just having your new project, you want to add Redux. So this one, install for a new project. So you just put here a comment for a new React or Next.js project. For the new Next.js project, install Redux as below. So you can just run this. Run this command to install Redux or React Redux. Just add these 3 packages, it will be enough. Okay, so this is still actually going on. They just give it a few seconds. I think it is just completing. Okay, because I had to create a starter just to avoid writing the whole entire HTML, which actually doesn't make sense, because we at this point you know how to get a list of products onto the UI, design the UI the way you want, but the most important thing is actually how do you add Redux. Okay, so let's just get the starter template and we see. Okay, let's just wait some more few seconds and see. Okay, so finally it has finished. Okay, just say now we can open this. Just say code dot to open this in actually in the VS Code. I'm just going to close this first one, and let's just open this one. So let's start with the package.json. We see what we have and what we need to add. Okay, so you can see in this basically what we have just added here. We have the Redux Toolkit, and then we have React Redux, and then Redux. So there are the 3, because these other ones they will be added. We have also added the icons, the Lucid React. Okay, so you can just go ahead. These ones they will be already added, but this is for the icons. And then I have also for the carousel, React Mart carousel is for the carousel that we are using on the home page. Okay, so you can just go ahead and then research about this React Mart carousel. But the important ones are these 3: the Redux Toolkit, React Redux, and the Redux. Okay, so after you have installed this, next is to run npm run dev, so that we can see what is happening. Okay, so I'm just going to run npm run dev, as simple as that. Npm run dev. Now one thing I just want you to do is one folder that I forgot and I left it in the starter is this Redux. So before even opening it, just simply close this, just delete this. We will just create this from scratch, so just delete this. Okay, I've just deleted this file, so I just forgot it into the starter template. So okay, so I've deleted this folder, as simple as that. So right now what do we have? We have the app. The app has 2 pages. It has this normal page, which is the home page, okay, and then it has also the cart page, which has this cart page. So you have the 2 pages, the home page and the cart page. Okay, now when you go to the home page, let's just go and run it in the here. Let's just go and say localhost 3000 and see what we have. Okay, we can just see what we have here. Okay, just wait for a second for this to run. Basically, I'm just going to be walking you through what we are running here. So just take this down. If you look at the first thing I'm doing is I'm actually fetching data from API. So this is to simulate the data fetching. So here is fetching or products from an API. This is the normal thing we always do. This can be an external API endpoint or an internal endpoint, doesn't matter. But the first thing is like you are fetching data from an API, and this is the easy way you can do it. I have this get data function. If we look at it, the get data function is in the lib, and its purpose is to fetch the data from an API endpoint. You can see text in an endpoint, gets the response, and returns the data. As simple as that. So this is a simple function in the libs get data function, which takes an endpoint and returns you the data that has been fetched. And we're using it in the page to simply get the data. You can just copy this here, this endpoint from the fake API. If I just go here into the fake API, just go here and you see this is the fake API. It gives you a list of all products. Okay, the products has ID, title, price, description, category, image, and rating. This is going to serve the purpose. Okay, you can have your object of any shape here of the products, it doesn't matter, but the first step that you normally have is fetching the products. And take a look that this is a server component on top here. That's where we are able to do this. Okay, then of course after that I'm just going to say here Redux Toolkit. Okay, I'm just going to say here how to modify this. You can modify this, how to use Redux and Redux Toolkit in Next.js 14. That's the title I want. So if you just check down here, I have this title that says products, and then this link that says view cart, and they're in flex. These are these. If we go back to the app, this is the title products, and then this view cart, which is actually linking to the page. If you see it, it is linking to the cart page. So if I click on the view product, simply we go to the cart page. Okay, we go to the cart page here, and the cart page is simply showing the items just here, like the two items here. You don't need to worry about this. Is just like hard-coded HTML. There is no anything working. If you click or do this, there is nothing that is working up to this point. Nothing is working. We are going to do everything from scratch. Okay, so maybe we can also go to that cart page here, and you can see it is simply cart page that has this component breadcrumb. The breadcrumb component is this here on top that is having home, projects, blah blah, and we can just look at it, breadcrumb, and you can see it has these links. Home, for instance, let's put a slash. This one takes to home, and maybe you can just say cart for now. Cart. Is it cart? Okay, I think just takes like to the cart. Maybe just say here products. Okay, and then shopping cart. Just say cart, just for purposes of fitting in. Okay, so basically that is what is the cart is all about. And if you just go back here to the cart in code here, you said it has this title, your cart, then it has these headings, the products quantity and the price. Okay, and down here it has these cart items. hard coded. Everything is hard coded, and this is to make sure that you understand how we are doing everything. So this is a cart item. The second cart item, we have 2 items, and these are the 2 items we have here, this Apple and the Apple Watch. You can see I just like duplicated this. It is just exactly the same thing here. Okay, so there is nothing big if you look into this cart item, okay, of which we are just going to take these ones into components. In the future, just going to create the components for these ones, but I wanted to have a starting point with you. Okay, let's just go back to the home page. Okay, we just go back to the home page. Okay, another thing we have is the loading. So we have this cart, and then we have this layout. Of course, layout is the user one, nothing fancy right now. Okay, you can just change this one to shopping cart project. Okay, and then we have the loading. So this is just having a spinner. Okay, I got this spinner from Flowbyte. You can just go and search for Flowbyte, and then you search for a spinner. You will have this spinner. You can just add any spinner you want in your app, but this is how you add. Just create the loading.jsx and add this component, specifically call it loading, and whenever you are fetching some data, it will load this component automatically. Now moving on to this page, right now we have the list of products, and down here we have one component called product list. Now product list, you can see it is taking in the products. If we go in the product lists here, okay, if we go in the if we go to the product list, you see text in a list of products, and then it simply renders it in the carousel. Okay, if you want to see how I made this carousel, you can go here on my also YouTube. You will see how we have this carousel working in the e-commerce project. You can see how we use it, but right now I'm just going to simply use it. Okay, then here we have the product component. Okay, we have this product component where we are passing this product. If you go in this product, is where we have this image. Okay, we have this add image, this add, and this image. This everything here we are having is into this component. We have the image, which is in a link. We are not going to have the detailed page implementation. We're just only interested in adding to cart here. Okay, so basically this is our project. Nothing fancy, nothing big. Okay, so just going to see how to implement Redux starting from this point. We already have our notes, our theory. You're going to be using these notes. Okay, so the first 2 things you have to do, the first thing is you have to create a folder for Redux. Now just simply go to the root and create a new folder and call it Redux. Okay, now in this folder I'm just going to put all the things we need concerning Redux. Will go into this. The first one is creating a store. So you can just say store.js, as simple as that. Store.js, like that. And as we said in theory, we said the store, okay, is composed of the entire application state. Is going to be composed of the entire applications, okay, application state. And the second thing we said in theory that the store is divided into different slices. So the store is composed of multiple slices, okay. So it's composed of multiple. So it means that inside here, we're just going to create a store, and then the store will give it slices. So the first thing we're just going to do is step number 1 is to create a store. Create a store. Okay, and to create a store, you can just say const store is equal to create I think it is we can use configure function. They say something called configure store from Redux Toolkit. Okay, so we use this configure store, and then inside here it takes in a bunch. So here it takes in a bunch of, so inside this store is where actually we put our slices. So here slices go here, and just say here slices go here, slices go here. At least this is a basic understanding you should have, that I don't know what has happened to my, like, it is really annoying sometimes. You just be typing and it's so slow. But in the store is, we just actually create the store using this line. And if you go in our documentation, we have it here, create a store. So I said create a folder in the root code Redux, and then create the store.js. And in that store you can see we have two things. We have configure store, which is actually creating the store, and then give it instead give it actually slices. Okay, the slices are going to have the reducers. Now these slices, they are actually a component of the reducer. So this is the only thing you have to do. So right now we just come here and we say reducer, okay, and reducer, and then this takes in a slice. Okay, so the slice, you can just say cut slice, and then you call the cut slice. Now the two things now is create a folder. Right now we don't have any slice so far. Okay, so you're supposed to put slices in this reducer, but we don't have slices so far. So just go ahead and create slices. So create a folder that is going to have these slices, and you can just say create a new folder and say slices. Okay, slices, and then you can just put the name of the slice you want, maybe cut. Do you name it? You can just say cut slice. Okay, you can just say cut slice, as simple as that. .js, as simple as that. So you can have slices, and here you can have products.js, product slice, cut slice, setting price. You can name a lot of slices that is going to hold different pieces of state you want to manage in your app. Okay, so you create the cut slice, and now steps for creating actually slice, I have them here. Okay, so you can, for the to create a slice, you have to follow these steps. One, you have to have this function which says create a slice. As we said, a slice is made up of before slice. Let me just put here some thing. Slice is made up of 3 parts. Made up of, maybe, is it 3 or, okay, let's just say they exceed 3 steps, I guess, which I just like be modifying. The first one, you have to create the slice. So just add this. Let me add these ones here. Why don't I use a multiple? Yeah, just use this. It will just work for me. So the first step, just going to come here and create a slice and give it a name. So you create a slice, okay, and then within that slice is you have to create another thing, is actually is create an initial state, because create initial state. create initial state. Okay, create the initial state of the app. This, if it is going to be products, you can create as an empty array, or you can create it as something, I don't know, but you have to create an empty the initial state of your slice. Then 3 is 3. Okay, 3 is you have to create reducers. So you have to create the reducers. Okay, create the reducers. Step 4 is export. So you have to export the slice reducers, okay, and then also as a reducer. So this one is step 4. And then step 5 is you actually have to export also the reducer. Okay, so this whole entire slice is exported. So export the slice reducer, and this slice reducer is actually which is going to be used in this side of the store. So in the store here, that's why we say we are actually bringing a slice as a reducer. Okay, remember that we are bringing in a slice as a reducer. They go all in here. They will be put in here. So here we are going for the steps, and as you can see, step number 1 is you are going to create a the state. Okay, you can just create the slice using the create slice function. Okay, so step number 1, let's go down here. Let's create a slice. So you say const, I'm just going to say const cut slice is equal to create slice. So there's a function called create slice from Redux Toolkit, as simple as that. So just call this const cut slice is equal to create slice, and then in it we can actually pass in the objects. Okay, we can pass in the objects. You can see it is create slice, and then we can pass in all the things we want. The first one we pass in this create slice, we pass in 3 things. The first one is the name of the slice. So I'm just going to name mine as cut. So you can just go ahead and give it any other name. I'm naming mine as cut. Okay, put comma here. Let me just see. It's supposed to be an object. Okay, it is an object. So just come here. Sorry, I just passed it without. This takes in an object of options. Okay, so the cut size takes in an object of options. The first one is the name of the slice, so they give it like the name, and we can just say cut. Okay, so for us we name ours as this cut. Okay, so when we are accessing all the data into this one, we'll be using this name, this cut. Okay, then we pass in the initial state. So that's why we can first create actually initial state. So on top here, you can just go ahead and create your initial state. Const initial state is equal to this is going to be an array of objects. Now this is like the initial cut. Okay, the initial cut items that we need. Let's add like 2 items. So just go here and let's copy 2 items. Just simply go here, copy these first 2 items, just like this, up to here. Ctrl C, and just come here and then paste them inside this. Ctrl S, and this will format it. So our initial cart has this, and now what do we need? The most data we need here, we need the ID, the title, the price. Okay, the price. We can remove description. Other things we can remove them. We don't need the category. Really, like on the cart page, we need a few things. The title, we have the ID, title, image. We need image. We don't need rating. You can remove this. Just to have like the items to start with. One thing that we can modify this is we can add quantity. QTY, just say QTY and add 1 for now. Okay, just add one property for quantity because we really need quantity on the cart. Now initially this will not be there, but I will show you how we'll be adding it. But we just add this. Okay, or you can just even remove it. Actually, you just remove it so that you'll see how we'll be adding it. Just leave like this. Go on the second item, have ID2, title, price, remove the description. Then this category, remove that, and the rating, remove that, and we have 2 items in the cart. So these ones are going to actually act as the initial cart items. Okay, then we pass this initial state into our created cart slice. So the first item, it has this. The second one, it has the second thing it has is the initial state. So initial state. So this initial state is what we have created here. So you pass it also in this cart price options object. And the final one is actually the reducers. So you pass in the reducers, and these ones are also, I think, an object. Okay, so we have these reducers in here. So basically this is how you do it. You have these reducers. Now the reducers, these are like functions. So these ones are the functions, okay, to be used to manipulate the state. Okay, so let's just give, for instance, an example. We could add, for instance, add to cart. Okay, so you can just add to cart, and this one is a function. So if it is a function, you just know we can run this function and return something. First of all, this function takes in 2 things. Okay, this function takes in 2 things: the state, as we said, and the action. As simple as that. Each function has access to these 2 things. As simple as this. Okay, you can just go ahead and return this, and you can do a lot of things. This is how everyone agrees that this is a function. Okay, so you can see it has this. Okay, it has this key, add to cart, and then it has this action which has access to the state, and the state is returning to me like this initial state here, and then action, which is going to be carrying the payload. Okay, so this is basically defining the cart slice. After getting this cart slice, bring this cart slice into this store, because we said that the store is made up of multiple slices, so we can just simply bring in this here. Okay, just come here and onto these reducers, give it a name. As you can see here, let me just go a bit up here. So if you are creating the store, you just also call it here. Okay, what is the store? Where is my store? So you can see here the name, and then you are giving it. So you can just come here and say, I want to give it a name of cart, and then this is cart slice. Okay, cart slice. What? And by the way, we are not exporting this. That's why it's not giving us suggestion. Let me go back to this. You are supposed to export finally here. Export. Okay, you can export default. Okay, what do we export? We export the reducer. So here we are supposed to export two things. We export the reducers and the reducer. So the reducers are these inside functions that we have here. We can just say export const, I think, like add, like we have right now only add to cart. So you can just export this is equal to from, I think, the cart slice, I think, dot reducers. Yeah, because we're exporting cart slice dot reducers here. We can just confirm in creating a slice. We have this, we have created the reducer function. So you can see here, we have the reducer functions that we have created. For instance, we can have all these ones, for instance, add to cart, remove from cart, increment. So these ones are the reducers. Okay, if I just come here and have here inside this, okay, and these ones are for different actions. Like add to cart is what we want to do. I talked about this in the PowerPoint. Add to cart, remove from cart. You want to increment quantity, you want to decrement. So here you can put anything. This one is just going to be the functions for doing particular things. If you just go back like to our shopping, you go to the cart. Here you said we have this delete from cart. All these ones, these events you are going to have in your applications, in turn they become the reducers. If you just want this remove from cart, this is like decrement quantity, increment quantity, remove from cart, and then you go to home. On the home, you see we have the add to cart. Okay, let me show that I have this. I have internet. So let me make sure I have internet, guys, for a second. Okay, so that's why it's not showing. And by the way, why I'm not getting error here, you guys, you might get an error, but let me show you something on the home page. Where I'm fetching my products, you can see I've done this, given this a default of an empty array. So when these ones are not fetching, instead of getting an error of this map, because you will have to get this something for the map somewhere. So instead what you do is you give this as a default empty array. But let me just go ahead and add my network here that just jumped off. Just connect. Okay, that's great. So now let me just go back and refresh. Okay, so I have this. I was showing you. So like, for instance, add to cart, this add. Okay, we create for each individual button, to understand it like in a local way, is for each button you must have a reducer for that button. So for instance, add, then we create this in our slice, cart slice, we create this add to cart, because this button is going to call this reducer. Then for remove from cart, if I go to cart, here I have this delete button, and this is going to call this reducer, remove from cart. Then I have this increment, this one is going to call this one, and then finally you have this decrement quantity is going to call this. Okay, so just for each button you have, for each specific event, you can have as many buttons as you want, so long as they are doing something to the state, then you have this here. Now we're going to see others. Is not a must that you use a state or something, but this is the basic how you have to use it. Then after you have created that, the next on to is after you've created your reducers, okay, you go ahead and create export the reducers and the reducer. Now you can just come here and export const, okay, and these ones they come from instead of actions, okay. Okay, so just come here, export const. We are doing two things here. You have add to cart, remove from cart, increment and decrement. So all these just simply just export them. These are the ones we call reducers from the cart slice dot actions. So they come from the actions, okay, and then export default this cart slice dot reducer. So we import this as a default, by the way, cart slice dot reducer, and it is this last one that is going to come to this store. So when you come here, give it a name, which is cart, and then I'm just going to say cart slice. Okay, so you can see here we import this from, you can see we have it here. By the way, this will work, but I don't think it's supposed to import just like this. I don't know. Slices dot cut const default. What type of import is this? I don't think I need to import it just like this. Since it is a default, let's first see from the slice, cut slice here, export default cut slice dot reducer, and then the other ones from actions. I think if it is default in the store, I'm supposed to say import. Oh, even this one was imported like this. What? Let me. I don't like using this type of import. I just need to using the normal import. Okay, so for some reason, just like using it, just like const this, I think that's no problem. If you check down here, actually on creating the store, let's first see. Okay, I just like importing like this. Okay, but I think this is the same. Okay, I like importing them like this. I don't like using this kind of method. Just go on top here. I like using this import configure store from Redux, and then import cut slice from, since it was exported default, that's why I don't have brackets on it, but this is it here. Okay, so this is just like here, this is enough for creating the store. We have only one. If we had others, we could put them here. Okay, inside here in this object, you could have another one, for instance, products, or you could have here products, and then you say here products slice. So you can just add as many as you want here, but for now we only have one for managing the cut. Okay, now we are done. That step is done. Create the slice. We have created our slice. The slice is having everything we need. It is having the name, initial state, and the reducers. Okay, so the next step after you have created the slice and you are done with that, you have to go ahead and create a provider. Why do we create the provider? In how we are using this, after you have your state, you have to share it throughout the entire app. Okay, you have to use it throughout the entire app, or provide this store, or we connect the store to the app. So here we are going to use connect the store to the entire app, to the entire app, just like that. So if we could just come and put it inside the layout, the problem is that connect the store to the entire app through Redux provider. So Redux has its own provider that uses to send the data throughout the entire app here. But the problem is that this provider runs only in the client components, so you can't just come and we put directly inside the layout. Okay, if you have been using Next.js 13 or 14, you know that we have by default all these ones are server components, and we can't just use hooks. We can't use hooks inside the server component. So what I will just do inside Redux folder, I'll create another one called providers. Just create providers dot, you can use JSX or JS, it doesn't matter. Let me use JSX, and inside here just write RFC, just like this, and then it takes in the children here, it takes in the children, then down here you can just have these children here. Okay, as simple as that. So here we want the provider, so just simply get the provider from Redux, and this one comes from React Redux provider, so import provider, and on top here make this one a use client. Okay, so we have this provider, and this provider we simply give it a store. Okay, it has the store, which is store. Now import store, so I mean this store we have to export this store somewhere. Okay, export, I think this is supposed to be export default const. Do we need to do that? Just say export const store. Let's see, on creating the store, did we export it? Yeah, so you can see it's supposed to be export const store. Okay, we have to export this store to be use it. So after creating this store, to connect it to the provider, okay, to use it in a provider, simply get the store and bring it inside the provider here. So store, now I can import the store here, just like this. So you can see we are getting the store, and then we give this store to the provider, and then it is through this provider that we are just going to use in our layout. So just go to our layout, in app layout, and then inside the layout where we have these children, cut them, and then just put here the providers. So just say providers. Okay, just wrap around these providers, as simple as this. Then put this. So here we have made our store to be accessible to all components. Okay, let me just repeat this. We have the store. After creating the store, which is made up of slices, after creating it, we want to connect it to an entire app to have access to this store. So to do that, we use a provider from Redux, and then we create here a component or a file called providers, where actually we are exporting this provider, and we get a provider from Redux, give it access to the store, and then we can use it in our layout just like that. Okay, next, here you can already just be using here to guide. So you can see here we have the slice already. We have created the slice here. Now we have created the provider. Okay, we have created the provider. Where is the provider? So we have the provider. Let me move down. Okay, we have this provider, and it is a use client. And then finally share the provider in the layout, of which we have done that. We have added the providers into the layout. And finally is the first thing we are going to use. So use, you can now start using start, you can put here start using the store. Since now, okay, we can start using the store, and the first thing you're going to do from the store is actually getting the data. Okay, for instance, we can get the data from Redux. So how would we fetch data from Redux? Okay, so now to fetch data from Redux, let's just go to the cart. So we'll go to the cart page, because on the cart page where we need the cart items. Remember, in our cart slice right now we have 2 items in the cart. So our first thing is to make sure we have these 2 items, because the initial state is saying we have 2 cart items right now in this. This is our initial state. Of course, afterwards we remove this to 0, but for now, to test the fetching of data from Redux, let's test by giving it these 2 initial products. So I will go to my cart page on top here. Okay, on top here I will just say const cart items is equal to, so we use a hook called use selector. So here we use a hook called use selector, and you can see that this use selector comes from Redux. Okay, so we use this use selector from Redux, and then it actually say cart items is use selector, and then we have access to the state. Actually here you pass in the state. This use selector has access to the state, and in this state you can return state. Now this state is actually the store, so from the store we can just access state dot cat. Okay, so we can access this like this, and let's go ahead and console.log cat items. And always remember that this is when you use a hook, you must make this one a use client. So I'm just going to go here and say use client on top here. Let's go back and to our app. We refresh the cart page. We see if there is any problems so far. Okay, it has refreshed. Let's go to the console. Okay, so you can see in the console we have an array of 2 items. Okay, you can see we have an array of 2 items. These items are coming from the state. If I just go ahead right now in the cart slice, add one more item by duplicating this. Let me duplicate. Now we have the third one. Let me just say this, and let me give it a name of test. Okay, now there are now 3 items in the state, in the initial state. If I go back, let's refresh. Okay, so now there are 3 items. You can see that. So right now we have the 3 items. Okay, you can see this test here. Okay, so this is the first way of how we fetch products. Okay, this is how we fetch products from Redux. So when you come to the cart page, only these 1 line here. You just use selector, and this selector has access to the state. Okay, and then from this state, this is like the store, and then from this store you access the cart. Okay, that's great. Okay, and we can just go ahead and now we start using this. Since we have the cart items, we can map around here. Let's go ahead and map. So here we have these items. I'm just going to create a cart product. So cart this one, and let me create a component. Inside the components, create not a folder. I just want to create a file, create a new file, cat product product.jsx is rfc, and then they just return this. Okay, let's just see, we just get the image, import the image from next image. Okay, then bring in all these minus the icon from React Lucid, from Lucid, get these ones from Lucid. Is there any other thing? Even this trash for the delete. Okay, so now I should just connect this, Ctrl C, cat product, go back to the cat page, and then remove this. They just map here, simply map. They just do a map here, and you're just going to say cat items dot map, and then we just have an item, access to an item and its index, and then we can just go ahead here and return this cat product. So return cat product, and let's give it this item. So item is equal, so you can just say here cat item is equal to cat item is equal to item, just like this. And of course give it a key is going to equal to I, as simple as this. So let's go to this cat product and take this cat item. So just go to the cat product, it is taking in this cat item. Okay, so we have access to this cat item. Okay, and then we can just of course from the cat item, if you see here in this, okay, the cat item has what? It has image as image, it has price, it has title and ID. So you can just add this information. So on the source is going to be cat item dot image. Okay, then here you can just use on the auth, you can use cat item dot title, just like that, and then here just put the title. Okay, you can just simply put the title here. Now we want to go and show the categories, so you can just remove this golden, let's remove this golden thing here. Okay, I think that's it. Then there is price here, so it is $cat item dot price. Okay, and then down you have the delete. I think that's all, and with that we have all the three items here. And for your own information is that they are working because of this. If you check in the next config, I have already put this fake api.com. If you are using any other API and the images are not showing, because it will give you an error on these images telling you need to configure them. I've already configured this one for fake store api.com. So if you're using any other API, you have to come here in this next config and make sure that you have your images configured. Okay, yeah, you have to have your images configured. Okay, take a note of that. Okay, so with that we have these cat items here. This is really nice. Okay, this is nice. We already have one Redux functionality we have added, and it is just this on top here of fetching items. So this is how we get the data from Redux. And this cat here we're using let's go to the store to understand. I think it is this cut here. Okay, let me just put S here and see to show you that, because we have this cut here, and then also in this cut slice, let me just go, we also have this name cut. I don't think these ones they have to match. I think this one, let me just call this one cut, maybe cut items, as simple as that. If I just call this one cut items, let's reload, and we see if we still have it working. Okay, so basically they are telling you they cannot find these properties. It is so telling you that this cut we are trying to access is this one here. Okay, so this is the one, this reducer, I'm calling it just like this, call it cut again. And now if we just go and reload, let's see. Okay, good. So that one has proved you what I mean on this page here. This dot is, this is the store. Okay, you could even just say call this one store, but I'm calling it state. But you could just say store, and then from the store you get the cut, because like really this is just in the store. And if you just do that, I guess we still have this here working properly. Okay, one function done. I think you understand. Let's go to the home page. Back to the home page. It is where the second thing need to happen. So on the home page we have all our items here. So we just need, if we click on add, we need to fire up this function. Okay, so let me go to this product. So this one is in the product component. If you come here in the product, okay, I need to start firing out some functions. So if you go in the cut components, you have product. Okay, so this is the product, and this is coming from here. This is the icon, and this is the add, this one you're seeing here. So we need, if this someone clicks this, let's create something here. I'm just going to go on top here and create a function. For instance, function and delete, maybe delete cut or something, whatever you just want to call it. Handle delete cut item, cut item. We all know this one will need, if this is add to cut, please, this is add, sorry. Okay, handle add item to cut, handle to cut. Okay, so I can just like add here. I'm just going to make this one quickly a client component. So just a client, use client actually, since it's going to be having events and clicks. So I just want to say on click. Okay, this one needs a product, entire product, which we have actually here. Let me just say console.log product, console.log product, as simple as that. Now let's call this function here on the add. I can just say come here on click. Okay, on click I can just go ahead and call this function and add to cart, as simple as that. So I can just call it like this. So when I just go let me just go F12 or just go to the console, and I just want to click on one of these ones. Okay, just click, and now you see I click and the item is here. This is the entire item. Okay, so now in terms of, okay, as we said, let me go back to the slide. If you remember what I said, I don't know if I can access this slide one more time to show you guys. Okay, so if you remember back to where we used I'm just going to show you this. So if you remember where we had these, where we are doing all these things on top here, somewhere here, okay, we're saying if you click on add to cart, it's going to call this function. Now you see this is if you remember, we have this as an event. Just go back and let me just close everything here. I remain with only one thing, which is the product. So this is an event that is firing this event here. Okay, so this function we want to fire is what you are going to put here. This one, this event, we want it to fire here a reducer. Okay, so we want to call the add to cart reducer inside here. That's what we are just trying to mean. When you fire this, okay, when you click this, want to fire this add item to cart reducer, remember we have that. Okay, we have this one in the slice. Is I open Redux and then slices, cut slice. Inside this, we have this add to cart. Okay, we have this add to cart state action. So we want to call this. So what we can just do is here we can just call this add to cart reducer, because it's the one which is responsible for adding the product to cart. And like enough, we have this one. So what is it going to do, by the way? How is it going to add that? But for now, let's just say dispatch. So as we said here in the slide, calling, I said NB, I think somewhere here, I said triggering the function to run is called dispatch. So we have to dispatch. Okay, we have to dispatch that action or that reducer. So we have to first get the dispatch. So const dispatch. So dispatch is the one which helps us to call. Okay, and we say use dispatch from Redux. So use this hook. So this hook is the way you see we have router.push, router.what. So this one is one for dispatching an action. So you just come here and you say dispatch. Okay, you can say dispatch. So now dispatch has access to all the ones you have. Add to cart. So you can say add to cart. So you can see it. You have to get this, import this from slices, cut slice. Just this. It must import here on top. So we are saying dispatch add to cart. Now if you just want to know that it is working, we can just go ahead in the slice here. Let's inside this, let's go ahead and console.log for instance. Okay, let me just go console.log state that it has ability to access state. So now let's go back here. Is my internet off? I'm having issues with my internet. It is jumping. Let me just check one more time. Okay, let me just check one more time to make sure my internet is on. Okay. let me connect to my internet. Okay, so by the way, you could just like show nice UI here. If there is no items, then we could just like go ahead and show that. So I just want to click on add, see if that reducer is being invoked. Okay, so they are saying here detected action creator with type cat, add to cart, being dispatched. Make sure you are calling the action creator before dispatching. Okay, dispatch add instead of, okay, it is a function. You can see here they are telling us what to do. They are saying I dispatch this instead of this. So just know this is a function. That's the good thing actually. So this is a function. Remember, a reducer is just a mere function. So dispatch add to cart function. Just go back, refresh. It is actually refreshing itself. Then it must now be working. Let's now go ahead and click. You could just actually refresh. Okay, scroll down here. Let me click on any of these. Okay, so but you see it is saying proxy, but at least somewhere we have an array. It is saying cut slice at this, but you can see saying wait a second. Okay, what do we have here? We have in console.log state. Okay, actually they just pass in the payload. Maybe that one would be nice. Let's pass in this product. So whatever you pass in here, okay, let's pass in something here. We pass in this product, okay, and then it will so by automatically taking this state, which the state is this initial state, and then this action, which is this. Just console.log action.payload and see action. I don't know if I just suppose even are we allowed to access data from this side? I'm not sure. But as we said, when you pass in anything into this product, when you pass it anything here, just know this the reducer takes in two things. It takes in the state and the payload. Now this product here we have just passed here is going to be part of the payload. That's on the action. That's why when we come to the cut slice, we access this product as a payload. Action.payload. Okay, just like that. Let me just click on this and you can see we have this cut slice and it has printed out this product as the payload. Okay, now what we want from this is that we don't want all this data. If you just look at all this data, we have category, description, ID, image, price, and all this. So from this payload we only want few things. Okay, from this payload we want few things. So I want to get the ID, so I can just come here and I say const. Okay, I want to extract things from the payload, for instance the ID. So I'm creating another object, title, image, price. I think those are the only things we want from this action.payload. You have seen now that whatever you send from to this function, it comes under the action, and then we can get it as payload. And this is what I explained in also the slides. If you move up here, it is what I was just talking here. The payload is the actual data that will manipulate the card state, and we just get it from the action, where you define the action somewhere on top. It is why I talked about the action, if you remember. I don't know where, but I think it is, I don't know, but I talked about it somewhere and I showed you that it is actually, I think it's here. Yeah, I told you the action is composed of type and the payload. And I told you the payload is what we actually need most of the times. And you've seen that the payload is the product that we have sent. So from here we can actually abstract other things, like we can get only the ID, title, image, and the price. Okay, we can get this information here. The one more thing we can do is we can also, there is no here there is no quantity. Okay, there is no quantity, but we can just also handle it. We can just say ID, title, image, price. Okay, and what I'm just going to do is we just simply want to add this inside the initial state. So what I'm just going to do is getting this and say state dot push. Okay, and I'm just going to push these things here. I'm pushing there this. Okay, I just want to push these ones, including the quantity. So you can set the quantity to be 1. As simple as that. Okay, you can simply push this to the state. I'm just a state dot push, and we push this new item. Now we can just remove this. I think that's the only thing we just need. Okay, just like this. Okay, let's just see now. Okay, let's just see. So I'm just going to add some items. Okay, I'm just going to add some items, and then we just go to view cut and see. Let me add this bag. I think we just need some other things which are, let me just go ahead and click on something like this jacket, add. Okay, that one has been added. And by the way, we can just also install you can just add React hook something, React toast something. I don't know why I didn't add that, like the toaster. You can just go ahead and add React hot toast, something like that. Okay, you can just go ahead and add the React hot toast, so that if someone adds to cart, it toasts. Make a toast. Okay, you can just simply come here and install this. So npm install React hot toast. Let me just come here like this. Okay, you can just say npm install React hot toast, just like this. Okay, you know it is installing. Just simply get this. So what you need to do is this: put the toaster. So copy this, and I think we can just take it in the layout. Okay, you can just put it in the layout here, just like this, and position top center. Okay, can just leave it there. Okay, just we have this toaster, and just going to import it from React hot toast. So just only need put that, import toaster. Let's see. Okay, from React hot toast on top here, and then the rest is just using this, the toast. So just copy this. Okay, and let's go to this product. After we have added to this, I think we can call that, we can call toast. get this toast from react toast dot success added, maybe just say added successfully here, successfully, as simple as that. Just say added successfully, so that we can just see something has happened instead of just like clicking and nothing happens. Okay. Okay, let's see if we have everything. Okay, let me just add another one like this one. Okay, added successfully. Let's add another one. Added successfully. Let's add this. Added successfully. Let's just view this cart. Okay, so you can see we have 6 items. Scroll, you see. So we have been able to add items in the cart. As simple as that. We dispatch. When you handle this, it calls the dispatch. The dispatch function will go ahead and call this add to cart reducer. If you go to the add to cart reducer, let's just go to the slice here. Add to cart is having the state, which has the initial state, access, and the action, which we are going to get the payload or the data that we are sending to manipulate, and then from it we just get the ID and all this. And if you check, they might be having quantity of 1. You see, quantity is 1, and this is going to help us manipulate. So right now we don't need the initial state to be having items. You can just go ahead and remove all this initial data, and you make this one to be 0, because in the actual application the cart cannot contain items by default. Okay, and you can just even go here and get items from local storage. Okay, but for now let's just keep it simple. We just have it here. Cart is empty. Let's go back to the home page and refresh. Okay, let's go here and refresh. So let me add some items. Start with this add. I added successfully, add successfully. Now we have 2 items. So the first thing I want to show is, can I show these items here on this view cart? Okay, now what is that view cart? If you see where view cart is, go back to page. On the home page, you can see on the home page we have this view cart and then these products. The problem is, if we try to use the reducer, getting the cart items within here, we are going to use the use selector hook, which makes this one a server a client component, and then you cannot fetch using server component like this. So normally what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to create a small piece of component for only giving us the length here. Okay, so I'm just going to go in components and create another one called cart length. Cart length. So I'm just going to create cart capital C cart length. It's just only giving us the cart count. Okay, let's create cart count dot jsx, and inside here I'm just going to say RFC, and the only thing I just want it is to return a span like of 0. Let's say 0 here. Okay, and then just go and import this into our products. I go to page, and then you say what is 0 here. Let's go ahead and put the cart count. So just come and say cart count. Okay, cart count, as simple as that. Okay, make sure you have it imported here. Now we can just make this one use client. Okay, we can make this one use client. Why would we want to create it as a separate component? Because we are going to get the cart items again. So here you can just say const cart items is equal to use select. So you notice use select, okay, from Redux, and we said this one takes in state, okay, it takes in use select takes in state, okay, or store, actually takes in the store, and then from the store you can return store.cart. This one will give us all the items in the cart, and then here we just simply put cart items dot length, cart items dot length. As simple as that is what we need from this one. Okay, so just go back now. Okay, so we have this. Let's start by adding items. So refresh. We just refresh, and let me just go ahead and add some items. Add this. Okay, you can just see. Just a second. Let's refresh. Cart items has access to the store. Cart items dot length. Let's go and see. It is taking some time. I'm just refreshing this component. Do I have internet? Yep. I don't know why it is taking long to do that. Okay, so finally it has. Oh, did I click I think on the product? Okay, so we have this having 0. Let's add one item. So item added to cart, you can see it is having 1 here. If I add another one, 2, add 3. Okay, now what happens if we add an item that is already there in the cart? Okay, we can just also do some sort of a technique. Just going to look at that, but we have 3 items in the cart right now. If you view, you can see we have these 3 items. Okay, that's great. We have the 3 items. We can just go ahead and find this total here. Right now this one is hard coded. It has nothing to do with this one. This one is hard coded on the subtotal. Subtotal is very easy. If we go to the cart page, let's go to the cart page. We have all the total, the cart items, so we can just find the total here. Const total price. Total price, something like that. Total price. Let me see. Total price is equal to cart items dot reduce. We are going to use the reduce JavaScript array method dot reduce. Okay, and then the reduce takes in the 2 things: the accumulator and then the current item itself. So current item. Okay, you have this accumulator and then the current item. Then here just going to say return. Let's say return. So we return the accumulator plus, okay, the current item dot price. Of course, this is price. We know that to get, we know very well, if we want to get, we have to get the item quantity. If you just check here, we have to get the item quantity times the price. Okay, we have to get the item price times its quantity here. As simple as that. So what I'm just going to do is, what am I going to do? I'm just going to, what am I going to do is put this in a bracket. So it is price times quantity, price times quantity, current item dot quantity, which is QTY. And then of course by default it is 0. This accumulated price we start adding from 0, so you can pass in this 0 to start 0 plus the first item, like that. Then it, whatever you just get here, it comes here, it will be the accumulated. Then we can just use this total price, where we have this total cut subtotal here. Let's first try it and see. Here's total price. Maybe we call it subtotal. I don't know why you're calling it total price, because there's also total price down here. Let's call this one subtotal. Subtotal. Just change the name here to subtotal, and let's see if this one works. Now it might just go ahead and refreshes the page. I don't know. Okay, so you can see it is 47.889. Let's add more items. I'm just going to go back to the home page and add more items. Okay, let me just come here and add one. Let's go ahead and add another one, like 2, 3, 4. I clicked on a wrong thing here, sorry. Let's just do this. So let's add this first one, add the second one, add the third. Let's review the cut. Okay, so you can see right now it is saying 99. You can add these ones and see if it is just that is the thing. But at least we have 3 items and we can get their subtotal, so that is cool. Okay, so one thing that I now want to work on is if this item is already existing there are 2 ways. You could change this text from add to already in cart. You could just do that, or if someone adds it the second time, then we just simply add, like we increase the quantity. Okay, we could just go ahead and increase the quantity. So we could just come here and say, okay, let's just say here on add to cart, we're just going to first get the data from the payload, and the first thing is to check if this item already exists. So here, let's check if the item already exists in state. Okay, if it already exists in state, then we can just like do something. So you just say const existing product or item, whatever. You could just say const existing is equal to state dot find. Okay, I think, do we find I think we just have access to the item. Okay, and then we can return item dot id is equal to id. Okay, sorry. So this is what we just return. It will give us the existing item. So we could just come here and we say if existing item. If this is true, then we just only want to get this existing if this already exists, if the item is there, we simply get existing dot qty. I think it should be like plus or equals, like, I'm not sure, it's supposed to be like this. We want to add 1 on the existing. If already the quantity is there and someone clicks, it should just simply do this, else simply do this, what we had done previously, this one. We have to test that and we see if it works. Is it supposed to be like plus equals, or it is equals plus? I think it is just plus equals, if I'm not mistaken. Let's test it. So we want to add one product twice, and we see if this goes ahead and changes the quantity to 2. Okay, let me just add one item, and I'm just going to this first one, click on this bag. Okay, go ahead and click this bag the second time. So we have 2 items. What? Yeah, so you can see this one actually did not change. The cut length did not change. It only simply remained 1. If we check here, we have only 1 item, but if I check the quantity of this item is 2. Okay, so it does not put the duplicate. So this is to avoid the duplicate. Instead of adding it again, it simply changes the quantity, and that is the best way of handling it. Let me repeat. We find the item of this ID that we have from the payload. After finding it in state, if it is existing already, we simply increment the quantity, else we simply actually add it in state and we make the quantity to 1. Okay, that's great. So that one is also out of the way. We are done with that. Next one to work on is now to work on remove from cart. So if you just go and add this, sorry, I just clicked, I think, on a wrong thing. Always click on the link. Okay, and by the way, if you want the cart items to persist, you have to add local storage functionality. If you want me to add the local storage functionality, guys, you can just go ahead and comment in the description. I can add that episode where I add it in the local storage, and after all, in the inventory, in the multi-vendor app, we are going to add it in the local storage, so you can also find it that side when you're implementing it in the big project. But right now, I just only want to show you how we are doing this. Okay, so we have 2 items in cart. Now we have 2 items here in the cart. We have the totals which are adding on very well. Subtotals are working. Now we want to implement this remove from cart. Okay, so first of all is that when we click on this button, we have to call this. Okay, right now we have this remove from cart. We have to fire this reducer, and we saw that, so we just go to the cart product. Okay, on the cart product we have this trash button, which is the delete. I'm just going to go on top here and I put handle function handle delete function handle item delete. Okay, now this one we want it to take in the ID, because we want it to take in the cart ID of the item to be deleted. You can't just click and delete everything. You need to delete a specific item, and that's why you have this ID. And whatever data you pass in here, remember, all this data you pass in here is what in turn becomes the payload. Okay, so here we have to dispatch. So to be able to dispatch, you have to use the use dispatch. So say const dispatch. So first create the dispatch here. Okay, dispatch is equal to use dispatch. We use the dispatch hook. Okay, and of course it makes this one to be a use client. Okay, and now from this we can dispatch this dispatch, and we can simply dispatch the remove from cart. Remember, this is a function. Now it will take in the payload, which is on the action, of course. So here we pass in the cart ID, as simple as that. It takes in this cart ID here of the stuff we are going to delete. Okay, so now you just go ahead and put this here on click. So on click, okay, we just want to call the handle delete, and it takes in, of course, the ID, which is cart item dot ID. So just come here and put this cart item dot ID instead of price dot ID. So we pass in the ID. That's the only thing we do. So what do we do? So this one runs, it dispatches, or it calls this function removed cart. If we go to removed cart, because this is dispatching, or it goes and invokes this reducer. Now when we go to cart price, cart slice here in this removed cart, what do we want to do? So first thing is getting this. So const first get the cart ID. We could just first get the cart ID from the action.payload, because whatever we pass there is what comes here. And by the way, this is not an object, because what we are sending is directly cart ID. If we passed an object, would the structure here, but this is going to be const cart ID direct is equal to action.payload. Okay, we are not destructuring it one more time, is because in the cart product you can see what we are passing in here is this. We are passing the actual cart ID. If we passed it as an object, like we passed in the whole entire if we passed in like entire product, then we could destructure the ID, but we are passing in the exact cart ID. So when you are receiving it here, we simply actually receive it like this. So we can just go ahead and say in the state, we say state, okay, dot we have to filter, and of course here we have access to the item, and then we can just say to return item dot ID equal to, in fact it should return all items whose ID is not equal this ID. So literally just want something like this, cart ID, just like this. Just a second, guys. Okay, so moving on. So when we click remove from cart, okay, we are having, when we have this remove from cart, what basically it is doing is manipulating the state, getting the state, and it filters out and returns all items whose ID is not equal to this one. So basically it will filter out this ID. Okay, and let's just go ahead and see if that one happens. We have to first add some items back here. Okay, and by the way, we can add a toaster. in the cart product. After we have done this, we can toast a second, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to call this toaster. So toast dot success and just say here removed. Okay, item removed successfully, item removed successfully. Okay, item removed successfully. And let's go ahead and so remove from cart. Okay, just have everything here, the toast. Okay, just go and test this out. Add some items. Just add like a few items. I'm just clicking on a wrong place, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, let me just go ahead and add some this. It's just, I think, because like this thing is really so fast, we have to work on this. Just add the second one, add the third one. So we have 3 items in cart. So just go and test to see if we can reduce remove an item like this one, delete. So item removed, but it has not actually removed it. Okay, let's just go ahead and check this slice. Remove from cart. Are we coding the right reducer? Remove from cart. We passed in this dispatch. Remove from cart. It will call this this one. Now state dot filter. Okay. It filters the item. Item dot id, cart id. Is there anything else we have to do? Supposed to be return, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Supposed to run the return. Yeah, I just like do that return. Okay, I just go back and add some items. Just going to add 2 items this time. Add this and then add this. So you have 2 items, go there, and let me just try now. Okay, item removed, and then it goes, and it just do one more time. Click this, item removed. So we have been able also to add this remove functionality. And if there are no items, you can just go here and add in the cart. I can just show you. Anyway, it's not like a must, it's not part, it's not just like a big deal. But here where you are doing this, where we have this, we could first check if the cart items are there. Okay, before putting this whole thing, you can just do cart items. Okay, dot length. Okay, if cart items dot length is greater than 0, if this is true, so just save and say if this is true. Okay, then we can just go ahead and we can just go ahead and run the map, I guess. If this is true, we just go ahead and do this map, I guess. Then else we can put a p tag saying no cart items. Like if I just put a p tag saying no cart items. or whatever. If you just like put here any picture or something, I don't know, but let's just go ahead and see. You can see now no cart items, and you can put like a photo of an empty cart or something, whatever you want to put here. Let's go back now and add some items. Okay, just add like 2 items. Okay, just we have 3 items now. Just go here, remove, item removed, item removed, item removed. Now we have this no items, start shopping, or whatever you want to do. Okay, that one so is working. They remove from cart, so you can just go ahead and work on others. For instance, this in the slice we still have the increment and decrement. So I want you to pause the video right now and try to implement increment quantity on your own and decrement quantity on your own. I'll just give you at this point, pause the video and do that. Okay, so I'm assuming you pause the video and worked on it. Now let me just work on it to see the solution. So on increment, let me hope I'm recording. Yeah, so on increment, incrementing this increment quantity and decrement, we have to first of all call them. Okay, so we can just come here and in the cart product we can go ahead and dispatch more actions, actually 2 more. We'll put these 2 functions, handle qty increment, qty increment, and then handle qty decrement. So you can have these qty decrement. Okay, so which payload do these actually need? They also need cart ID, so just going to pass cart ID here and also cart ID here. Okay, so here we dispatch, as you may have predicted, we dispatch actually increment quantity. Okay, and then here we're just going to do decrement qty. Okay, and then all these ones we are passing in the cart ID. Okay, so let's start with the call all these functions on these buttons. Okay, so on this button here we have on click. Okay, on click, just say handle increment qty increment, and let's pass in cart item dot id. The same thing, let's do it for this on click. So on click we just simply call handle. Okay, just say handle qty decrement. Okay, just like this, and then in between here where we have 1, we're just going to show cart item dot quantity. So you're just going to say cart item dot qty, and simple as that. So when we click like this, let's pass in here the id, cart item dot id. So this one is the payload, so we pass in the payload, and then it calls this function here, dispatch. Now we don't need these ones here of incrementing. These ones remove the toast. Really, we don't want to toast anything here. So now let's go to these functions, increment and decrement. So in the cart slice you have this increment. Okay, for incrementing is really easy. First of all is to find the item, so const cart id. So we just simply have to find this. Let me just copy that. Simply we just need to find this. existing item. Okay, we just need to find this item. Did I just get all this? Simply get cat ID. We have cat ID here. So get the cat ID from the payload, and then let's increment. So we first have to find this item, this existing item, and if the item is there, then we can just say if existing item. Okay, then we can just go ahead and say existing item dot qty. I think it's supposed to be plus equals, it is plus equals 1. So we just increment it by 1. Then the same thing we're just going to do for decrement. Okay, the same thing here for decrement. We get the cat ID from the payload. We just go to this and we find item with this ID. By the way, this was supposed to be cat ID. Okay, it's supposed to be item dot this is equal to cat ID. We find this item. If we find it, then we increment the quantity, and then here decrement, we also find the cat ID from the payload, and we find the item which item with this ID. After getting it, then we can subtract. Okay, the only thing with here is that we want only to subtract if only if the item is there, and okay, and if the item quantity is greater than 1. We don't want and if this qty existing item dot qty is greater than 1. Okay, the item quantity must be greater than 1 for it to do this, because if the quantity reduces below 0, we don't want to subtract on 0. Okay, so that's it. Like the item quantity should always be equal to 1, greater than 1 for this to happen, for the subtraction to happen. Okay, let's go ahead and try this out. First, let's add the items into the cart. Okay, add this chart and add this Joel, the TV. So we have 3 items. Go to view cart. We have 3 items. Total is 82. Let's start with this here. Click on the plus. Nothing. On the minus. Okay. Oh, so we have them vice versa, I guess. Let's try to see. Increment quantity. If it is existing item with qty plus equals 1. I think it's supposed to be like that, plus equals 1. Okay, and then the decrement quantity. Okay, I think what we are just is here in the cart product. Let's see. Handle decrement, handle increment. Where are we calling this? The button, this is the minus, is calling the handle. So this one's supposed to be handle decrement, guys, quantity decrement, the minus, the first one, and then this one, handle qty increment, the plus, this one. Okay, so just once more time, let's just go and see. So now that one should now work. If I click here, you can see it is reducing, and it can't reduce below 0. You can see that, like right now, if I click on any of them, they are not working because the quantity is just 1. But if I increase, okay, and we have to change this, okay, to fixed. Let's just first fix that. You can quickly go to cut page, okay, cut page, and you could either seed it or you could just call it to fixed. Where do we call it? Whatever we get here, we could just say to fixed. I don't know, we could just add it here to fixed. Maybe just add it here. Let me just see. You just say to fixed, to fixed. Do you need to call it on that, or just you call it here? I think any place can work. If we just say to fixed, and we add to, I just see if it solves this problem here. Yeah, so you can see it is 2 press values right now. Okay, nice. So we can just do this whole thing here. Okay, you can increment this, decrease. Okay, so this is really nice. Okay, so we have our application right now working. You can go ahead and remove an item. So we have all the functionalities that added. Okay, so right, one more time, let me take you to a demo of the app. Okay, so this is the demo of the app. So we have the items on the UI, and by default there is no any item in the cart. Okay, you just go here, add the first item. You can see item added successfully. We can go and look for this TV, add it. The second item added successfully. Can add another one, add item successfully. Now we can just go ahead and look for the first item. We add it like twice. Let's just go here and this bag, add it. Therefore, let's go back and add this bag one more time so that it doesn't add duplicates. So if you have already added the item in the cart, it doesn't add it. If I go one more time, add this, you see it added it, but it has not modified the cart items. If you go to view cart, you will see that the one that we added twice, the bag, has quantity 2. First of all, we have the total subtotals calculated. If I go ahead and I increase this to 2, you see the subtotals are changing. So we have increment, decrement working properly. Okay, we have delete functionality working properly. Okay, great. So we have built this, and I like what we have built. If you have any questions concerning the app we have built, or you have any question, first of all, you can join our WhatsApp group and give us a full description of your problem or the error. Otherwise, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.